Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Press Box Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
It's Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. Welcome to the Philly Press Box Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA, and the Edge of Philly Sports Network. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Jim Chet Chesko. Hey, Chet, the trade deadline came and went. Very little activity for the Flyers. The Sixers are now 4-3 since the All-Star break. We'll certainly talk about that. The Phillies just 3 weeks from heading north. No real surprises so far. The roster, not going to be many surprises in that bunch, I don't think. The NFL Combine is now over. March Madness Selection Sunday is coming, and looks like there might not be any Philly flavor in that tournament. That'll be interesting. But, hey, plenty to talk about.
Yeah, the Penn Quakers probably have the actual best chance of sneaking into the big dance, but even that's unlikely. They got to win a couple of games this weekend. Speaking of hoops, I'm impressed by what the Sixers have done since the weekend. 3 pretty wild, impressive victories, all on the road. They went 4-1 on that 5-game road trip. They now have a couple of days off before a pair of winnable home games this weekend, so lots to talk about regarding the Sixers and the Flyers and the Phillies and the Eagles as we head into that free agency time very soon, the legal tampering period coming up.
The legal tampering.
I like that, legal tampering. Yes.
That's right. Well, it'll be interesting to see. We'll talk a little more about the Sixers and that whole deal. Interesting before last night when they actually got back to playing a little bit of defense. Those 140-something to 130-something games going on every night. That was a lot of run and gun.
147 to 143 Monday night. That was crazy. Yeah, it was a real shootout. And then, the following night, maybe some tired legs other than like the young guy, Tyrese Maxey, who looked great. Fortunately, they blew it open in the second half. And Joel Embiid, playing on a back-to-back night for the second time in a couple of weeks, only had to play like 28 minutes. Still scored 38 or 39 points because he's that good, Bill.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good when he's there, and he's there. So that's all good. That's what we like. Well, hey, we have a couple great guests tonight joining us. Mr. BoopStats himself, Bob Vetrone Jr., and our hockey resident expert from HockeyBuzz.com and Flyers website, Bill Meltzer, will be returning to Philly Press Box Radio.
You know, we haven't had Bill Meltzer on since last June, so it's high time we get him back on, given the current situation with the Flyers. And as for Boop, well, we just like having him on with us. Plus, we're going to get his take on the Philly sports scene, talk a little March Madness ahead of Selection Sunday, but also because this week, Bill, marks the 5-year anniversary since we first had Boop on the show. That was March 7th of 2018. How about that?
How about that? Just falls right. Look at the cards and letters are already coming in. Look at that. We haven't even got him on the screen yet. They're already shouting out to the Boop. Hey, let's get to it. Let's roll. Boop, Bob Vetrone Jr., welcome back to Philly Press Box Radio.
Hey, guys, how are you? Thanks for having me. Happy anniversary.
Yeah, 5 years, Boop. How about that?
My wife we all looked up with me for 5 years.
We all look exactly the same as we did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, the same as I was 5 years ago in the backseat of a car with papers everywhere.
Hey, whatever it takes. All right, Boo, let me take you back to March of 2018. I wish I could. Wow. We were all still giddy from the Eagles' first ever Super Bowl win. The Flyers were on the way to a 98-point season and a playoff berth. But it would be the last full season, as it turned out, for third-year coach Dave Haxtell. Remember him? The 76ers under Brett Brown. Yeah, it was Brett Brown still were en route to their first 50-win season in 17 years, and we were all pretty happy with that. Ben Simmons, he was on his way to winning Rookie of the Year. And, the Phillies were just a few weeks shy of beginning their first season under, Gabe Kapler. Boy, a lot has changed in 5 years, Boop.
Yeah, and things in this day and age, things change so rapidly all the time. growing up, it was like the managers and the coaches and even the players stuck around a lot longer than they do now. But now you blink and, somebody's been here a year and a half is all of a sudden the dean of the Philadelphia coaches.
Yeah.
You really got to pay attention to it more now than you did in the old days.
Hey, Boop, we haven't talked to you since the Super Bowl. Let's get back to current events. Didn't go the Eagles' way, but it went your number 2 team's way. What was your take on the Super Bowl, the way it played out and the way it ended?
Yeah, truth be told, I sat on my couch and I really was rooting for the Eagles. But when something good happened to the Chiefs, I was like the least disappointed guy in the whole Delaware Valley. So I can't, it's a shame. I really did want the Eagles to win for no other reason than a lot of people in my life are big Eagles fans. The defense kind of got snookered there in the second half. Both Chiefs touchdowns, the guys are wide open. We got better. Patrick Mahomes. There's more Patrick Mahomes in the second half. So I don't want to say Nick Sirianni got out coached. Let's just say Andy Reid and his staff did a great job. And when you mentioned when you mentioned the Sixers 147-141 game, when I saw that score, I thought maybe the Sixers went and signed Patrick Mahomes, and that's how they got all those points up on the board.
It was a wild one. Well, hey, now we're entering the offseason for the Eagles, where there's a lot of question as far as who's going to be back. I don't know if this is a totally accurate list, but I posted this a few weeks ago. We're hearing some reports today that almost all of the guys on defense will not be back, including C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He put kind of a cryptic message out there on Twitter, and people are wondering if it's a goodbye message. And we know they can't afford Hargrave. We know they can't afford James Bradbury. Any of those defensive guys going to be back? Now they're saying maybe Brandon Graham will be the only one.
Yeah, and from a fan standpoint, he's probably the best one because people are still living off his great play to end to basically end the previous Super Bowl victory. I got to tell you though, since I have so many fun sports I follow, I don't follow that much off-season stuff. I kind of wait. Okay, some of these defensive guys are leaving. Well, we're going to get some more in there, and I'll figure out who they are in September and hope they do the job. It's like we said, things change over so much anymore. It's hard to get acclimated to the same people, year after year. So there's going to be movement. You just hope the people next one's up do a good job.
Well, I do have to ask you one more question about that though, Boop. Isaac Samala looks like he might be gone too. And
right.
Do you take a chance of breaking up the best offensive line in the league? They think they have a replacement ready to go, but do you just pay him and continue to roll with this best offensive line?
I pay him because the offensive line is the most important position in football. If you doubt it, look at the Chiefs loss to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl because that was not Patrick Mahomes that game because he had nobody blocking for him. So, anything you can do without throwing the baby out with the bathwater to save your offensive line, I do it.
Hey, what's your take, speaking of the offensive line? Do you think it's a definite that Jason Kelsey's going to be back? I'm saying it's like 50-50 at this point. Maybe 60-40 that he's back.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot's going to have to go with how he had his newborn baby. Now he's got a much fuller family. I don't know if he has 2 or 3 kids now, but, maybe after a month or 2 of that, he's going to have to decide what's going to be best for him in his other life, his real life, the one that's going to last forever. He could get by 2 months, find out that it's a breeze having a couple of kids and get back on the field. Or he might say, I want to get home and bounce some kids on my knee all the time and watch football instead of play. So he has certainly earned that right beyond repair for the things he's done both on and off the field for that organization.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to throw this up there. It's a good question from PJ. I'm going to put it up there. Heard rumblings some players upset with defensive coordinator signing as opposed to internal promotion. Could the players be wanting out?
Boy, I don't know. If you can't play for certain defensive coordinators in the league, then maybe you shouldn't be in the league. Part of the whole deal of playing sports is being able to deal with other people. It's teamwork, as I yell to my family all the time. So if you're complaining about a new defensive coordinator in the middle of March, maybe he's not the problem. Maybe you are.
I like that.
Maybe we'll get back to the Eagles in a bit, but I got to ask you about the Sixers, Boop. Is this the year that they're going to get past the second round? They're playing pretty well right now. Still have a tough schedule this month, but they're on pace for another 50-win season. They've done really well, actually, since they were 12-12 back in December.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Sixer guy, but paying attention a little bit. Over the last couple of years, there seemed to have been that one Eastern Conference team you knew they were going to have trouble getting by. And I don't know that there's that team this year. I don't think the Celtics are quite as good, and they've certainly been shown they can handle the Bucks. The biggest problem they might have right now is the aura of the Celtics. They've lost a couple of years to them now in the playoffs over the last 6 or 7 years. They certainly have a long history of losing into them. I think they can play with them on the court. The point is, when you get to them in the finals or the semifinals, is it going to drum up? The whole city will drum it up, the whole Sixers Celtics thing. Can they get past that emotionally? Talent-wise, I think they certainly have enough to win the East. And as I said many times during that ill-fated process, that you can't depend on them winning a title. The best they can do is get to the final, get out of the Eastern Conference. That would be a win for me as far as the process. And they probably have as good a shot this year to get to the final as they've had throughout this whole thing, I think.
Can they win it with Glenn Rivers at the end of the bench? That's my big question, because it seems, we talked about this a bit last week, seems like whenever he gets in these big games, and he did it with the Celtics right after the All-Star break, he squeezes the bench down, tries to play the game with 8 players in the big games.
Teams have won NBA titles with lesser coaches. That's all I'll say.
All right.
Fair?
We'll
That'll
see.
Be interesting.
See.
I know you watch a little bit of them. How do you like Tyrese Maxey? He's one of my favorite players of the last 20 years. I love watching that kid.
Absolutely. Aside from his scoring, his passing, and his energy, he's always smiling. He's having fun. He's always, communicating with his coach and his players. Again, for a lot of guys, this has been fun things for them to do for 95% of their lives, and they get to this point when they're a professional, and all of a sudden it becomes, work to them, and they're never smiling, and they're not happy. He's just constantly happy. It helps that you're good at what you do. I would have rather he's going to like Villanova instead of Kentucky, because I don't like to root for Kentucky guys. But he has fun. He's got a lot of talent, and if he can stay here for a little while, he can become a real big fan favorite.
What do you think? We're talking about signing guys and spending. What do you think about James Harden's season, and where does he fit into the future? He's been fantastic.
Yeah, he really has been. It was hard to believe he's only been here a calendar year. I like him as a player. He certainly is a new breed player with the step back three and all that other stuff, and the 1-on-4s that he can generate. But again, like anything else, you go somewhere, you're having fun, you're playing well, and then you start to look around and say, maybe I'll be better over here, or maybe this team wants to, do more for me. So I try not to read too much into that process. I'm going to enjoy James Harden as long as he's here. He certainly can help them win a championship, but, in 6 months, we could be talking about the long-lost James Harden.
Boop, before we get to a little March Madness talk, college basketball, I got to ask you about the Phillies. And we talked about this with Tom McCarthy last week. He was surprised that a lot of the over-under numbers are so low for the Phillies, 88.5, 89.5. They won 88 games last year, and as T-Mac said, we're a better team this year. But, yeah, the Mets and the Braves are still there, and they're figuring, according to Vegas, to be 5 or 6 games better than the Phillies. What do you see for the Phillies in 2023?
I think I think what Vegas does with those over-under wins is they see that Harper is not going to be there early on, and figuring that the Phillies, as they so often do, stumble out of the gate, that number can be down a little bit, because even if they play well later in the year, they're not going to get to it. I think they're good. I like Trey Turner a lot. I think I like the energy he brings. And, it's if they get Harper back, when they get him back, it's hopefully All-Star break or whatever. And Hoskins isn't terrible, and I hate saying it like that, but that's how we feel. And, Schwarberts, they're going to be packed. If they can play a little bit like they played towards the end of last year for the entire season, it should be fun. Whether or not they get to 90 wins, or it'll depend on the pitching. But, I like them.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the bullpen. We talked all last season. If they'd have won half of the games that the bullpen blew last year, whatever it would have been, they'd have won 96, 98 or whatever it was. Now, on paper, they have a much better bullpen. I think that's what really surprises me about that number being low. I hear what you're saying about Harper, and it's a good point. But I think the bullpen should be much better.
Again, it's what Vegas decides is a number. You almost have to, when those things come out, I almost want to come up with my number in my head before I see what Vegas puts out. We used to do that with NFL lines a lot more before the internet. Try to come up with the line for the next week's game before Vegas put it out there. Because if you come up with a 5 and they're coming up with a 7, now you know how you really feel, and you're not just reacting to the 7.
Going to be a fun season for sure. Hoops, March Madness, Selection Sunday.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk to you or others like you after Selection
There's no
Sunday.
one other like
There's
me.
no one
There's
other
nobody
like
like
you.
you. You're right. I shouldn't have said that. We're talking to you before Selection Sunday. So, what's your anticipation? What are you thinking going into Sunday? Is this going to be the first time since the Carter administration that there's no Philly team?
It's very possible. Like you said, Penn's got as good a shot as anybody. I think Villanova's got enough talent to run the Big East. The cohesiveness is what's bothered me because they have not had the nucleus all together, but for 8 or 9 games so far. One bad game and they're out. And there are some really good teams. Connecticut showed that the other night, and Marquette's one of the top 6 teams in the country. So Villanova could run the gamut. Some Big East teams from lower tier have. Only one 6 seed has ever won the Big East, and that was Syracuse in 1981. So it would take some doing, but this team could do it. Other than that, you're right. Penn's got the other shot. Temple would need a miracle, even though they've beaten Houston once to steal their conference. So we're looking at Villanova on the men's side, long shot, and Penn again having to win at Princeton and then beat whoever else there. So yeah, we are quite frankly looking at between the men and the women, one of the 12 teams in the city making the tournament, and that would be Villanova women.
Wow.
It's a shame, but I get the nature of the beast and the landscape and how it happens.
Well, before we get into those teams that are going to be in the tournament, I want to ask you, what's your take on the Big 5, City 6, whatever you want to call it, and where has the talent gone? Why is the Hawk almost dead, and LaSalle is not good, and Temple's really not good either? Are we not getting the kids from the city anymore, or what's the reasoning?
I think it's twofold. First of all, I think there's a couple teams in the city that are little fish in medium ponds, so to speak, that they're probably not quite in the league they should be in. Let's face it, LaSalle University is never going to win the NCAA championship. I'm sorry. The best they can do is get in the tournament and make a long run as long as they can. It is extremely hard for them to get into the NCAA tournament from the Atlantic 10. I'd rather they'd stuck in the MAC in the old days, and then almost any LaSalle team would have had a chance to steal that tournament. St. Joe's in the Atlantic 10 is just about right. Temple might be in the league. It's a little bit too big for them, but they're there for football. So my one take is I think a couple of teams are playing in leagues above their head. The other thing is that some of these schools started to hire from outside the city in order to comply with the way colleges were going, and in so doing made changes that turned off not only the local kid, but also the allure some other kids from outside the area may have for coming here. And I don't want to name schools, okay, St. Joseph's, but their biggest selling point was their coach. And I don't know, I don't want to come up with a bad word for you, but they messed them, and they have not returned from that. And I don't think they ever will. And if they were doing it in a league like, say, the MAC or the CAA, that'd be easier to overcome. But when you come out of the Atlantic 10 and there's 2 or 3 teams that are in the top, 50 in the country, it's harder to do.
And yeah, it was 1977, Boop, as you know, that it was the last time there was no men's team in the big dance. Hey, I didn't know if you were serious or you were kidding, but you said you wanted to say something about the CBI tournament. What the hell?
Yeah, Detroit Mercy finished 14-19. They got beat in the Horizon League semifinals. The reason that's important is because the son of their coach, Antoine Davis, he now has 3,664 career points, 3 shy of Pete Maravich's career record. So they aren't going to the NCAA tournament. They cannot go to the NIT tournament, which guarantees at least the 500 record. But the CBI is a third-rate I don't say third rate, the third level down invitational that you can buy your way in if you get invited. So depending on, and from what I read, the head coach, who is the player's father, is going to talk to the players. And if they get an invitation, they may play a CBI game. And this Antoine Davis may get a chance to pass Pete Maravich on the career scoring mark. Now, don't write me letters. I'm not saying Antoine Davis is as good as Pete Maravich. There might be 2 college basketball players in history that are as good as Pete Maravich. But as a numbers guy and that kind of thing, passing his career mark would be influential. I mean, as I said to somebody the other day, 10,000 people haven't done it. So, it's a little interesting side note. It's one of the many minutiae things that makes college basketball, to me, my favorite sport, both on the court and on paper.
Didn't Davis play like 6 seasons? 5
seasons because of COVID. He got the extra year. But he didn't. He's averaged like 25 points most of those seasons. So he did. It was legit scoring. The 5 seasons helped. Having a 3-point shot, which Maravich didn't have, obviously. The extra games in every year. I mean, these teams play 15 more games scheduled than Maravich did in a day. So, pardon me. So, yeah, but again, it's like when Lionel broke 3,000 points and people said, oh, but he did it in the MAC. Well, then why doesn't everybody get 3,000 points in the MAC? It's still a great accomplishment. And it piques interest in the sport for another couple of weeks,
Well, Boop, we're going to let you get back into splits in just a second. I know you got some hoops to watch, but there's something very important I got to ask you about. I'm sure you're going to be glued to your TV Sunday night for the 95th Academy Awards. What is Vegas saying about which movie will win Best Picture?
Yeah, the odds-on favorite is Everything Everywhere All at Once, which when I saw it come out, I really thought it was a movie about my passing technique back at Hopkinton Playground, because that's how my passes went, everything, everywhere. But it won the Golden Globe, I believe, and the odds went down, just like minus 1,100 to win. On that list, the long shot is a movie called Woman Talking, and the list I saw had them at 20,000 to 1. For a second there, I thought the name of the movie was 20,000 Women Talking, and I started to cry because that image in my head just was terrible. So, I still don't see Casablanca on that list, though.
Oh, Boop.
Sorry.
I have no follow-up question to that yet.
Bill, you saw all those movies, right?
I saw 9 out of 10.
I did see one. I hope it wins.
Top Gun?
Top Gun, yeah. I think that's third or fourth with the odds makers.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Boop mentioned, Everything Everywhere is the favorite. All Quiet on the Western Front is the second most likely.
Yeah.
Hey, did you guys see? Did you see Elvis? I heard that was good. I didn't
Loved
see
Elvis.
it, but I heard it was good.
Loved it. I saw it twice.
I heard he did a good job with that.
Yeah, and then
really.
I saw it. The guy took the film home with him, and so we had to say, Elvis has left the building.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Boop. Boop's going to leave the car. Get out of here, Boop.
Hey, Boop. We had Tom McCarthy in the parking lot last week. We got Boop in the parking lot in the car tonight. But we appreciate it. T-Mac doing that. We appreciate you doing that.
Thanks, guys.
All right. As always, thanks, my man.
Thanks, Boop. There he goes.
All right. Good stuff. That's fun. That's fun. Boop always has lots of good information. That's good stuff.
Sure does.
All right. Hey, Chet, spring just around the corner, but you can still save money with Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance.
That is correct, Bill. Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance puts you in control. You only pay for the miles you drive. With the same full coverage that a traditional policy offers, pay-per-mile insurance gives customers greater control of their insurance costs. See how much you can save with pay-per-mile car insurance by calling your local agent. In Westchester, Pennsylvania, that is Dave Lavoie. Call Dave at 610-430-0700. Again, 610-430-0700. And start to save more now that you are driving less.
Well, hey, Chet, since we are going to be getting out a little bit more, hopefully the weather up there for you has been pretty darn good, and you get ready to make a road trip, but that's another story. What's going on at the Irish Rover Station House now that the weather is going to break a little bit for you?
Always good things happening at the Irish Rover, and it's March, so you know what that means. Well, they have Quizzo every Wednesday evening. They have Taco Tuesdays. They have Killer Burger Thursdays, music Saturday nights. This weekend, Bill, it is that Oliver Daggum dude. Happy hour specials, dinner specials, always 24 beers on tap. And check this out. On Thursday evening, the Rover has something coming up. It is a night with the Flyers. The Flyers visiting the Carolina Hurricanes, but it's Flyers night at the Rover, Coors Light specials, and a bunch of giveaways. And then next week on the 16th, that is St. Patrick's Eve, of course, it's Guinness night. Special prices on Guinness, and I think you can get your face on a Guinness pint glass somehow. That's interesting.
Oh, Lord.
And then, of course, it's St. Patty's Day, Friday the 17th. Live music all day, beer specials, corned beef, cabbage, and more. That is a big one. More details on all of that and more on their website. That, of course, IrishRoverStationHouse.com. And right now, Bill, I have this for you right here.
Hey, everybody, it's Willie Nile here, and you're listening to Chet and Bill on Philly Press Box Radio. You lucky people.
Hey, Chet, you know, we like to kid you about your selfies and all that. Seeing your face on a beer glass could be, I don't even know, the words won't even come out. Scary.
Beautiful.
Let's go with scary.
Beautiful.
Let's go with scary.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. Hey, before we get to Bill Meltzer and start talking some Flyers hockey, I did want to go a little bit further with you on the Eagles and the fact that there was no franchise tag put on any player. Did that surprise you?
No, the Eagles very rarely use the franchise tag. I think they did it once with who was it, Trotter or somebody, then they pulled it off. So yeah, they're not big on that. And you're going to end up paying anybody that you put under the franchise tag a whole bundle of money, and they don't want to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, but you know, I think at some point, they, like Boop says, and he's right, you know, there's going to be new guys come in.
Yeah.
But you got to replace good players, and Hargraves for one, Gardner Johnson for another, or two pretty good players that they could have tagged one of them, and you know, they'd had to pay him.
Yeah, I'm hearing they may try to restructure a couple of contracts now, Lane Johnson and somebody else. So, you know, that would free up some more money. Howie's been known to do that in the past, and the players are receptive to it. So, you know, if they can do that, that'll help because, you know, they're going to have to pay Hurts probably in the next month or two, and that's going to limit their ability to bring in too many other free agents.
Yeah, and I hope that doesn't happen. You know, they end up having to pay Hurts what his value is. As crazy as the values are, they pay him, and then they fall apart because you can't put enough players around them. That's problematic.
Yeah, so Howie's got his work cut out for him over the next month or two. You know, figuring out the Hurts deal, maybe bringing back a couple of the other Eagles free agents, and then signing some other outsiders. I'm a little worried about the defense because they're going to lose a lot of those free agents.
Absolutely, they are. Well, hey, Chet, moving on to the Flyers. There's some diehard Flyers fans that aren't real happy with how Friday's trade deadline came and went for the Flyboys, and you, my friend, are one of them.
Boy, ain't that the truth, Bill. It has been a long season. The team has the third worst record in the Eastern Conference, and yeah, last week's trade deadline news, just a couple of minor moves by the Flyers, did not sit well with a lot of the diehard fans. They want the GM out of there. They want some answers to exactly what the plan is. And well, they're frustrated, and that's understandable.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna figure it all out right now because we're gonna welcome HockeyBuzz.com and Flyers website writer Bill Meltzer back to Philly Press Box Radio to get to the bottom of this trade deadline mess.
Hey, Bill.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey,
All
Bill.
right.
Fighting off a cold.
There you are. Bill, as we just said, it has not been a great season for the Flyers. Obviously, they've lost 9 of their last 11. How much of it is due to the loss of some key players to injury, and how much of it is just the fact that they don't have a whole lot of talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that injuries have certainly played into it. They haven't had Couturier all year, and haven't had Cam Atkinson all year. You know, a year ago they acquire Ryan Ellis, figuring he's going to play on the top pair, and he played all 4 games for them last year, and not all this year, and may never play again. So that's certainly you can't can't overlook that those are important factors. The biggest thing this year, truthfully, is that the team can't score. They had they got a good start. They had a 10-game winless streak in November and into early December. Or actually, I guess 2 wins out of 14 games at one point. And then they got hot for a while, and were even scoring for a while, for about a month. And at the All-Star break, they're at hockey 500. And I know an overtime or shootout loss, and they've really struggled in overtimes. That's for sure. But I mean, in hockey is based on points percentage. They get to the All-Star break at the hockey equivalent of 500, and then the bottom fell out in February. And goals have been very hard to come by. And I mean, certainly there's a big talent piece to it as well. I mean, they lose Travis Konechny also, so all these things play in. But honestly, guys, I don't think it's just a 1-year thing. I think it's 3 years of missing the playoffs. It's missing the playoffs in 4 of the last 5 years, and before that, being in and out of the playoffs on an alternating year basis. I mean, it adds up over time. And fans have a right to be frustrated. They have a prerogative to voice their frustrations, and that there's been a lot of that, especially recently. And it all kind of came to a head at the trade deadline. And in and of itself, it was certainly not an ideal situation when you have a player you figure has some value to trade and you get nothing in return. When I do the Flyers Daily podcast with Jason Martinez, which I do that every Monday. That's the Flyers official podcast. I was talking about how with the general manager, everybody has the benefit of hindsight. Every fan, every one of us, can look back. Well, that was a mistake. What you want to see, the very best general managers, the Keith Allens of the world, right? Sam Pollocks, you name the great GMs. They have foresight, and so they were ahead of the market, and they could see something that was down the line. Not every general manager can live up to that standard, but you want them to at least have insight, be able to read the market. And in this case, and Chuck Fletcher said it himself, well, the market spoke. And I mean, what happened was they ended up holding the bag and not being able to move James Van Riemsdyk. Had he been moved a little earlier, particularly because when he first came back from surgery, guys, in his first 17 games, he had 13 points. And that coincided with when the Flyers had that little surge in December to January, like right after Christmas break for about the next month. That overlap with that. And Van Riemsdyk was getting credit for Owen Tippett and Morgan Frost hitting a groove during that period of time. It was kind of a veteran mentor to them. And to show, and again, with the benefit of hindsight, right? But that was the time to move him, because if you move him then, you absolutely could get something, and you're ahead of the market because nobody's made trades yet. And eating half of the contract, you probably could have gotten that done and gotten something decent. Unfortunately, in this case, the Flyers held on to him, and they held on to him while he was struggling, and the bottom dropped out on the team, because it wasn't just Van Riemsdyk who wasn't scoring; nobody was scoring. And the team it's been really, really tough going over the last month plus. So, you end up holding the bag, and the frustration of not being able to move them kind of boiled over. And at the season ticket holder meeting and whatever, and people chiming on social media, calling in radio shows. I mean, it's there's anger out there, and again, fans have that right. They have the right. They're dissatisfied to express that dissatisfaction.
Well, Bill, you mentioned that. Let me jump in right here. I was listening on the way out of town on Saturday to WIP, and I heard Lou.
I'm embarrassed to be a Flyers fan right now. They're rudderless, they're heartless, they're soulless, they're gutless, and when your most recognizable feature or person on the team is a stinking Muppet, there's a problem. They haven't adapted to the league. They've never adapted to the rules. When everybody else was getting quick, puck-moving Russian defensemen, no, we still need our, quote, muckers and grinders because that wins. It's an embarrassment.
That's not a happy fan.
No.
So Bill, if Chuck Fletcher's taking the heat, rightfully so, I guess, but it wasn't too many years ago. Ron Hextall was the GM, and the thought was that the farm was loaded with talent. None of that talent grew, or not much of that talent seemed to grow. What went wrong? Was Hextall wrong, or did the system not develop them?
Well, every year, I'll answer it this way. Every year, the Hockey News does their Future Watch issue, and they poll scouting directors from around the NHL. So these are people in the business, in the NHL, and they don't have a dog in the fight because they don't rate their own system. They rate other team systems. And the Flyers, one year, I think it was 2018, they were second in the league. 2019, they were rated with the best farm system in the NHL, and they were in the top half, and then it just kind of went down from there. I mean, just as you said, players either haven't hit their ceilings, pretty much anybody, or they had, and not these as an excuse. And in some cases, they had miserable luck with injuries. Guys who lost entire seasons of development and never quite bounced back. In some cases, guys were maybe overvalued and didn't develop as hoped. I mean, it's not just one thing, but the development didn't go as they wanted it to. And in the meantime, Ron Hextall tried to carve a window of time where, at the beginning of this process, you have Claude Giroux in his prime, you have Voracek in his prime. Simmons wasn't a superstar, but he was a 30-goal guy for the team. He was in his prime. And what happened is, 4 years go by, these guys start getting older, and you don't have, other than Couturier, and although Couturier won a Selke Trophy and he's a very good player, he's not a superstar either. Mm-hmm. You'd have somebody stepping up to take the mantle. And so the core got old. Some of these guys eventually over time got moved out. With the exception of the 2019-20 season, which was, it's funny because that now stands out as an aberration. I think a lot of us thought, okay, they're on the right track now. They brought Vigneault in as the head coach, and they had the NHL's best record in November, and I think second best record from like January 5th until COVID. So they ended up as the top seed in the playoffs in the East, and then they kind of just never really got it together in the playoffs, which is weird to say because they got one win away from the Eastern Conference Finals. But then after that, not only did they not build on it, they slid backwards the next year and kind of crashed and burned, and players kind of tuned out Alain Vigneault. And they've been trying to sort that mess out ever since. I mean, Tortorella's in this year's head coach. There's less talent, less experienced talent than there was then. And, you have what you had this year. I thought that until the All-Star break, the team was competitive most nights, even when they were losing. Gave themselves a chance to win and just didn't have the firepower to scratch out those 3-2 wins that you need to win in this league. But then after the All-Star break, they started losing in February some really ugly games and in quick succession. And although it's been a little bit better so far this month, they're back to finding ways to self-destruct. Saw that in Tampa Bay. You go in, you play Tampa Bay. The one thing you go in knowing is stay out of the penalty box. Well, what do? They take 5 penalties and they give 3 power play goals, and including the Speary incident that Tony DeAngelo just got suspended for today. They're not helping themselves, giving themselves a chance to win. I mean, ultimately, right now it's, I guess, better for their lottery odds. But as you're trying to build a culture, you want to at least compete, even if you're not winning. And
Bill,
you
who
want
are the guys? Yeah. Who are the guys to build around? Is it Travis Konechny and Carter Hart? Is he the guy we thought he was, or is he just guys who had the misfortune of some bad defensemen playing in front of him? Are Konechny and Carter Hart keepers?
Well, yeah. I mean, Konechny, who should have been an All-Star this year. No offense to Kevin Hayes, but Konechny should have been the Flyers All-Star, averaging over a point a game. But now they're a little bit in the situation they were with Hexy because Konechny's in his prime. He's 26. He's about as good as he's going to be, and he could be that for a number of years. But by the time you're ready to win, is Travis Konechny still going to be here? And they're going to have to make that decision. Is Konechny, do we want to keep him through this process? That's not an easy call to make. Because there's not the talent around them. I mean, they want to build around guys under 25. Now, you mentioned Carter Hart. Carter Hart's actually been a bright spot this year. With a goalie, I say this all the time. Like team defense and goaltending go hand in hand. And if one is good or bad enough, it's either going to lift the other or drag the other down with it. What's happened with Carter Hart is the team play has dragged him down with it. Most nights he gives them a chance. If you're giving up a lot of backdoor goals and plays where you're not giving your goalie a chance to make saves, a chance to give you a chance to win, his numbers are ultimately going to suffer. Carter Hart's a very good young goalie. I thought he had a down post All-Star game period last year and a down year the year before that. I think Carter Hart's been the least of the Flyers' problems. Now they have another goalie they like, another young goalie, Samuel Ersson. It's a very nice luxury to have as two very good young goalies. At some point, they might have to make a decision: do we move a guy here? I don't think that decision gets made this offseason. I think that both Hart and Ersson will be around next year and share playing time to a degree and go from there. But over the long haul, that's a fair question. It is, although Hart is young, so he's young enough to be there through a rebuild. But do you see what's happened to John Gibson in Anaheim? Where Gibson was a very, very good goalie, but a terrible team in front of him dragged him right down with them, and now he's not an above average goalie because it's hard. You go and you lose every night, and the team doesn't give you a chance, and ultimately what ends up happening. So I was talking about like short side goals, right, or rather backdoor goals. So what happens when there's too many backdoor chances? Well, the goalie starts cheating off the post row to go the other side. Now all of a sudden, pucks are sneaking in the short side because he's aware of the one he's not having a chance to stop, and that looks like a bad goal. And it's really everything builds off of itself. So for people that just are outright saying, well, tank, be as bad as you can, that's not fair to your goalies. I think continuing to work on being competitive and continuing to work on being better defensively, I think that's how you build something. I think you still have to build that way. So those are guys. I think they're still building around Hart. Konechny, we'll see what decisions they make. The guys who I think they'll try to move, not the easiest thing to do. Kevin Hayes, certainly. Travis Sanheim, who had signed that big extension. Well, he has a no-trade clause that kicks in on July 1st. That's on an 8-year deal. Now, I don't know what kind of value you're going to get from him coming off of a down year like he's had, but you don't want to take a risk tied for 8 more years either. I think they're going to try to do something there, particularly because he seems to be in John Tortorella's doghouse a little bit. The guys are going to try to build around Owen Tippett, 23, Morgan Frost, 23, Cam York, 22. Those guys who are actually, they've been a bit of a bright spot where they're stepping up a little bit and they're taking a little bit bigger bite of the team. Are any of these guys going to be superstars? No, probably not. Probably not. But they could be good players, good supporting cast players. But you still need the top guys. You look at the teams that contend, and they have superstar talent at the top of the roster, and that's really what the Flyers are lacking. I can look up and down the Flyers roster when they're healthy. From with Konechny and the rest of those guys to go, look at the roster. These are all NHL players. It's not like when the organization had its worst year in 06, 07. Like these guys aren't even NHLers, right? Well, this group they are legitimate NHL players, but you don't have the top guys. Even Konechny on a really top team will probably be on the second line. And so, how do you develop that star talent? I mean, you're not going to find it in free agency. You got to build through the draft, and we'll see if they have lottery luck this year. Can pick one of the top 2 guys, whether it's Bedard or Fantilli, because those will be the obvious number 1 and number 2 this year. There's your first building block. Then when you get to the guys like Carlson or Michkov, I don't know. Like Michkov it would be the Flyers' luck that Michkov falls to them. because that would leave them with a really tough choice to make. Michkov is a Russian player who's unbelievably talented. I mean, up there almost with Bedard talent-wise. But you might be waiting 4 years on him because of the political situation. You don't know when he's going to be able to come over. So, that might be, it could be. It could be you're picking at 7 or number 8, and teams are, we could be waiting 4 years. We could be waiting 5 years. We're going to pick a guy we know we're going to have. Now, all of a sudden, he falls to you, and do we go with the sure thing, or we go with the guy who might be the best player other than Bedard long term, right? And it's one of those picks like where everybody looks back at 1990, and they where the Flyers picked fourth, and they took Mike Ricci, who was a nice player, but then all of a sudden Jaromir Jagr went one spot further, and that was all over when he would be available. That's why he fell to where he fell. So you don't want to look back and go, oh geez, we could have Michkov, and we took a guy who's a nice player, but not a guy who really moved the needle long term. It would be great if the Flyers won the lottery or got the second pick, but that's luck, right? That's luck of the draw. Right. You get luck. Hoping for luck is not a plan, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
It's gonna take quite a bit of rebuilding. Flyers farm system, last thing I'll say on it, had a pretty good year actually. Some guys have shown development this year and development towards being what I think will be NHL players. The guy they drafted first round last year, 5th overall, Cutter Gauthier, looks like he's going to be a pretty good NHL player. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. They need superstars, but it looks like they might have some good players in the pipeline relatively soon. A guy like Bobby Brink, he's highly skilled. He missed the first half of this year due to hip surgery, so there is some talent in the system, but there isn't the really top guys. And if you look at the division the Flyers are in, this is the top division. You're going to need those top guys long term here.
Well, hey, Bill, we're going to have to let you go. We're out of time already, but tell everybody where they can follow you, what you got going on your social medias and all that stuff.
Yeah. So you can find me on PhiladelphiaFlyers.com most days of the week. I am also the Flyers Alumni Association's content manager. So FlyersAlumni.net, and I'm also with HockeyBuzz.com.
Very good.
And Bill, I just want to say this is your 13th visit to our show, but it wasn't until last November that I actually got to meet you in person at an event. So that was kind of cool to finally say hello.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, we got to see Keith Allen posthumously inducted in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. So that was pretty fun. It was really nice meeting you.
Good event. Thank you, Bill.
All right, Bill. We appreciate you joining us. Let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, hey, Chet, let's move on. Let's give a shout out to all the shows at the Edge of Philly Sports Network this week. Football season's ended. Baseball season getting ready to start. The coverage has not slowed down. You can catch all the action on www.eopsports.com as well as Edge of Philly Sports on YouTube. You can also find our show on Philly Press Box Radio YouTube channel. Please help us out by hitting those subscribe, follow, and like buttons. As always, share with your family and friends. And as you can see, every night there's coverage at the Edge of Philly Sports Network.
Yeah, and you know what, Bill? I'm excited for what's happening this Sunday, so we got to talk about it.
Oh,
you could go take a 3-minute bathroom break, will you? This is important. All right, here we go. Ahead of the 95th Academy Awards, here's my take on some of 2022's very best movies and, my personal favorites, too. Over the last 14 months, I've managed to see 49 movies that were released in 2022, 32 of them in the theater, 17 of them via cable or streaming. 6 movies in my personal top 10 of last year did not get Best Picture nominations, but I really liked all of these nevertheless. The Adam Sandler basketball movie shot in Philadelphia, which aired on Netflix, Hustle. The underrated Babylon, about the early days of Hollywood, with a fantastic cast headed by Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, and Diego Calva. Also, 2 great movies that earned their respective lead actors Best Actor nominations. The Whale, with a terrific Brendan Fraser as a depressed, obese man hoping to reconnect with his estranged daughter. The underrated film Living, starring Bill Nighy as an elderly guy's reaction to a terminal illness diagnosis. This movie got mixed reviews, but I thought A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks, was fantastic, really enjoyable. And this one, The Menu, a dark comedy, semi-horror film about a group of elite guests who spend a memorable evening at an exclusive restaurant on a private island. It's not for everybody, the movie that is, but I loved it and gave it a solid A. Before I get to my other favorites, let me say that a couple of big movies from 2022 that are Best Picture nominees were not among my faves. Avatar, The Way of Water was beautiful to look at, but at 3 hours, 12 minutes, way too long, and I just didn't really care about any of the characters. And this year's Darling, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which has already snagged a bunch of other industry awards, was just too out there for me. Maybe I just didn't get it. I don't know. By the way, I love horror, and 2022 gave us a bunch of good ones, including the latest incarnation of a couple of long-running franchises, Scream and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Plus, I liked Smile, Orphan First Kill, The Black Phone, Bodies, 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 and X, plus its prequel, Pearl. Sadly, the alleged final film in the Halloween franchise, Halloween Ends, was largely disappointing. Okay, among this year's Best Picture nominees, I told you how I felt about the Avatar sequel and Everything Everywhere. And the one nominee that I didn't get to see was Tar, starring the great Cate Blanchett. Sorry, Kate. But I did see the other 7 nominees, and I enjoyed all of them. I gave both Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans and the dark comedy Triangle of Sadness solid B ratings, and the interesting Women Talking a B+. That one just missed my top 10. The 4 Best Picture nominees that did make my top 10, well, The Banshees of Inisherin and Elvis, both of which get an A- from me. I would actually give the Best Actor trophy to Austin Butler for his portrayal of the King of Rock and Roll. And at the very top of my list of movies for the year, a long-awaited sequel and a remake, both of which I gave a solid A. Top Gun Maverick with Tom Cruise back in that memorable role some 35 years later, and the World War I film focusing on a young German soldier, All Quiet on the Western Front, which was graphically violent at times, but also incredibly well done. Those 2 movies and the aforementioned film, The Menu, are my top 3 of 2022. So there you go. Enjoy Sunday's Academy Awards, and I'll see you at the movies. Wake up, Bill.
Oh,
wake up, Bill.
Oh,
wake
was
up.
it for me? Was it for me? Sorry. I just checked out for a minute. Hey,
I'd like to thank the Academy.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Hey, I hear there's a St. Patrick's Day party going on at Dolan's Pub, deep in the heart of Delco. Tell us about that.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day is fast approaching, Bill, Friday the 17th. And my buddy Brent Porsche is going to be hanging out there. Brent Porsche from 93.3 WMMR. What a great dude he is. He's a sports fan. He is a fan of booze. I like that about Brent. And of course, it is going to be fun to have him there with everybody celebrating the 69th annual St. Patrick's Day there. Delco's greatest Irish dive, and it is a good place. I've been there a few times. 24 East Sellers Avenue in Ridley Park. dolansbar.com for all the details. But yeah, live bands, food vendors, drink specials. That is next Friday, the 17th. Be there or be square.
Check it out. Hey,
and
Chet.
Hey, Bill, I got to tell you something also. Philly sports is down in Florida right now. The Philly Sports Trips guys, and they're going to be down there again next week because it is spring training time. So a lot going on down there, and you can get all the info about their upcoming trips, phillysportstrips.com, on their website. So check them out as well.
All right, you got it. Hey, great guest tonight in Boop, Bob Vetrone Jr. and Bill Meltzer. Great stuff from Bill on the Flyers for sure. Who's coming to Philly Press Box Radio next week?
Well, it's funny you ask, Bill. And I had a picture here somewhere, and let's see if I can find it. Oh, yeah, it's this guy, former Phillies legend from the 1980s. It is Steve Jeltz making his first visit to our show. Steve made his major league debut 40 years ago this summer. Played, I think, parts of 7 seasons with the Phillies. You know about his career. He only hit, a handful of home runs, but 2 of them were in one ball game from both sides of the plate. So we'll talk to him about that, about the fact that he was born in France, lived in Kansas for a while, and spent a lot of good years with the Phillies. So we're going to have Steve Jeltz visiting us for the very first time. That's going to be fun. He loves to talk baseball.
Oh, I love talking to these old players. It doesn't matter what sport. They're great. They're just great. So many stories, so much fun. Looking forward to it.
Yep, that's going to be fun.
Yes, sir. All right. let's take another quick break real quick. Thank our friends at the PPCC 118 Raz Room. They post great sports memorabilia on their Facebook page so people can take a chance of winning something they may not be able to afford or have access to. All items come with certificates of authenticity. They continue to run out great autographed memorabilia from all the Philly teams and more. Check out their Facebook page, like it or follow it. It's PPCC 118 Raz Room. That's right, PPCC 118 Raz Room on Facebook.
We didn't get to talk to Boop about Penn State, but Penn State is on the bubble, and they're probably going to be in already. But if they beat Illinois for a third time this season tomorrow evening in one of the Big Ten conference tournament games, they are pretty much a shoo-in. So we might not get a Philly team, but at least we'll have Penn State in the big dance if all goes well.
That's right. Hey, and you have MonsterCom coming up this weekend, right?
Oh, man, I love that. We had Dave Hagan on the show last week, and it is going to be a whole lot of fun. I will definitely be there. Let's see if I can find the picture that I wanted to post. Now, I can never find these pictures when I want to, but a lot of good celebrities there, including a bunch of folks from Sons of Anarchy. Some of the final girls from, the horror movies of the 80s will be there. Good time had by y'all. I'm going to be there pretty much all day and all evening on Saturday. So there's a chance I'll post pictures on Sunday.
No, go figure. Hey, and don't forget, if you're not into MonsterCon, but you're into sports, the Phillies show is at the Oaks this weekend with tons of guests. There you go. Pile of Eagles, probably a dozen or so more Eagles. There's Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, Pete Rose, Bob Boone, Juan Samuel will be there. Sixers, Tyrese Maxey, and some others will be there. It is a huge show, going to be a good one. So if you're not going to MonsterCon and you want to go to a show, go to Philly show at the Oaks this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Hey, something else, Bill. I do business news, my full-time job on the radio, and I did this story late this afternoon and early evening. I'm going to read it verbatim. Here's something state regulators are wrestling with: whether to legalize betting on high-profile WWE matches, which, spoiler alert, are pretty much scripted ahead of time. So, citing people familiar with the matter, CNBC reports that the WWE is talking with gambling regulators in both Colorado and Michigan to allow betting on some matches. The wrestling entertainment company trying to convince officials there's no chance of results leaking to the public ahead of time. What do you think of that?
Whoa! What could go wrong with that?
What could go wrong exactly?
Are you kidding me? Yeah,
I swear to God,
we worry about refs making bad calls at the last minute, last minute of a game, and then now we're gonna bet on scripted outcomes.
Yeah, I can't see this happening, but hey, you never know.
You got a better chance of betting on the Academy Awards winning than you do in that nonsense. That's ridiculous.
Some states do allow you to bet on the Academy Awards.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I'm not making any wagers.
Oh my goodness. Hey, Big John Roberts just sent this note over. Check it out. Tune into the WBC tonight. USA team playing. Schwarber and Remuto will be starting lineup. That's cool.
Yes, it is. Anything else, Mr. Furman?
No, I don't think so. Got to shake this whatever's going on in my chest and bad allergies going on down here. I'm hoping that's what it is, but
yeah,
battling it for a few
next
days.
Week, Thursday, I'm heading down your way, Bill. So hopefully we can meet up somewhere in the Sunshine State. I'll be at the Phillies game on St. Patrick's Day, seeing some friends in Tampa the day I arrive. So it's going to be a crazy fun weekend. And St. Patrick's Day is next Friday. So it's going to be a good time.
And it's been crazy hot down here, as I told you, but there is actually a little cool front supposed to come through. Cool for here. Might be okay for you. With a little rain on Monday, and then it's going to get a little cooler Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 40s at night, I think, Chet.
Oh, wow. Wrap it up, Bill.
All right, let's do it. Let's thank tonight's special guest, Bob Vetrone Jr. and Bill Meltzer. Our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Bob Sullivan's LikeYourAge.com, PPCC 118 Raz Room, and Dave Lavoie of Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA. For Jim Chet Chesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll join Philly Press Box Radio next Wednesday, March 15th. At 7 p.m. You can see us live on Facebook. Listen to our website, phillypressboxradio.com, on Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the others. High hopes, Philadelphia sports fan, and go Sixers.